In addition to that, we do have some other technical liaison group, internet engineering task force, and all these things. Another very important advisory committee that we have within ICANN, that's called the Governmental Advisory Committee, that's called the GAC. Especially in the Caribbean, I've noticed that governments are not very much involved in, let's say, in the international arena. Most of the time, it's the developed world that they come together and they make or draft their policy, and at the end of the day, we just need to adhere to all these things. So that's why I would like to encourage, especially Caribbean governments, also to give your contribution to the GAC, for example. In that particular committee, governments can come together and discuss issues that they are facing. And as I said before, most of the time we are just in the background and others decide for us. So it's time now for us to come and to handle our things ourselves. Okay, so basically that's the way ICANN function. And ICANN has at your left, of course, it has a president and CEO and staff as well, like your servant, for example. Okay, I would like to explain now internet number addressing, for example. Let's start with IPv4. Basically, as I did mention before, computer systems don't understand names. We as human beings, we are using names because it's much easier for us to communicate with each other. For example, Jeanette, my very good friend. See her in the back there. So it's very difficult if I would call her, for example, 198.51. It doesn't work like that. So that's why we use name. Jeanette.com, that's a name. But computer systems use what we call the IP addresses. And there you have an example of an IPv4 address example. So there is nothing like rocket science, anything with this. It's just the way that computers communicate with each other. They do that through IP addresses. And in the past, more than 30 years ago, when all these researchers came together to discuss how they can have some systems in place, they have developed this whole IPv4 system. And at that particular time, of course, we didn't have the internet. So at that time, they have developed this IPv4 with what we call a 32-bit space. For those of you who like mathematics or science, that means that we have 2 to the power of 32 possibilities. So IPv4 has, let's say, 4.3 billion possibilities or addresses. From that number, 86% can be used on normal computers, and the rest are being used for, let's say, for the internet itself to function. So we basically have 3.7 billion addresses, IPv4 addresses out there that could be used for normal computers. And as you may know, we are heading now through some very challenging and developments in the internet arena. Nowadays, everything is connected to the internet. For example, we are living in what we call the Internet of Things arena. So we are not only using IP addresses for computers, but we can use them, for example, for your fridge to monitor what is going on there, for your dog, maybe for yourself. So it depends how far you would like to go. But that means that we need a lot of IP addresses. And that's the whole thing. We have 4.3 billion IP addresses out there, IPv4 addresses out there. we had